In this video, I'll be sharing with you a few of my experiences and learnings. You can call them tips or basics that help me create films and videos. This particular video is targeted to amateurs and beginners who are and school students who are doing their first media projects, and the very beginners who want to create a movie using their cell phones, digital cameras and handycams. I'll be sharing a few tips, a few basics that help me particularly from personal experiences and my learnings. I'm planning another video that takes care of editing, the basic editing of a film project, and yes, this one is all about your content, what you have to shoot and how you have to shoot, what can help you. As we proceed with this short video, I'm going to say some words to you, I'm going to show some techniques, and so this video could be an index for you or a metadata for you to pick those terms and explore them further. For example, if I say rule of thirds, I'm going to explain that briefly, but go on the internet, read books and explore each and every term that we are going to discuss today has a deeper meaning of its own. So if you want to delve more into that, do read further, explore further about these terms. So making films or any other form of expression is an art to me, and hence there can't be any rules that you have to stick to. So do not hesitate in not following what I am going to say, what I am going to share, and experimenting with your own unique ideas. Do not hesitate in experimenting. All of us are unique and we have different perspectives and visions and ideas. So try and implement them and learn from your own experiences. However, our own experiences of past projects and experiences as shared by friends and as we read in books and all, the experiences and learnings come handy, very handy when we are trying out a new project, and particularly in creating a safer shot. Like with an experiment you might come out with a very unique idea and very attractive one, and you may not. So during your initial projects, your initial stages, these learnings, these experiences of others do help. So based on my own experiences and learnings, what I read in books and what I learned from my friends and some mentors, and also based on the questions that various school kids have asked me about making films using home apparatus and digicams and mobiles, and I've had few sessions in past where I've mentored school kids. So based on their questions, also I've designed this particular sequence, this particular video. So here we go. I believe first and foremost is you, the filmmaker, the person who has this idea of creating this video or a film, and he goes on arranging for things and executing the project. So first and foremost, the filmmaker, for me, the filmmaker should be comfortable, should be at ease. Now this comfort comes at various levels. So the first would be should be mentally at ease. For being mentally at ease, you should be calm and undistracted. So try and do this artistic, try and get involved into this art form when you are in a calm state of mind, or when you are in control of yourself. Another level of mental comfort comes with if you know your subject well, if you know what you have to create. Like if you already, for example, if it is a fictional film, if you know the story, if you know what you have to shoot, you will be at ease, you will be more comfortable, and you will be able to focus more on the other things that are new to you than the story itself. Or if it's a documentary, or if you are shooting a live action, So if you know the place well, if you know that action, what is happening, for example, if you are shooting a food vendor or an ice cream wala, you should know his usual actions, the place where he stands often, and what you want to ask him, what kind of transactions usually happen. So if you are aware of all this, it makes you comfortable, mentally comfortable, right? And another stage of comfort at the level of mind happens when you know your machines well. If you know how to operate your cameras and the tripods and whatever machinery you are using, sound recorder, you should know the operations of that. You should be comfortable with that machine. So all this together, there must be many more factors, but these are few key things that you should be comfortable with to be mentally comfortable. Another level of comfort is the physical comfort. So you should be fit. It helps if you are fit, and you should be wearing comfortable and simple clothes, not very tight and not very flashy, so that you do not divert the attention of others towards yourself. The focus should be on the content that is to be shot. Your posture and your movements, body movements should not be very uncomfortable to you. You should before you start shooting, you should be in a comfortable posture, and while shooting, if you move the camera, we'll discuss how to make it more comfortable, the camera movements and all, and how to avoid the discomfort. Now let's discuss in detail about these, the mental comfort and the physical comfort that we discussed. So coming to the obviously the camera operations and the functionalities, you should read the manual and shoot more often. Shoot anything like at your home or any sequence that is happening. Shoot more often and view that again and again in your computer or on your phone itself, and imagine what could have been done in a better manner. So this way you'll be comfortable with the machine. Being comfortable with the content that is to be shot, right? Again, the first and the foremost thing is awareness. Be aware of what is happening. Be conscious be aware of what you've planned. In case of a fictional movie, you have an imaginary sequence with you. So, and in case of a documentary, it's real action. So in that case, imagination becomes observation. So it always helps if you visit that place, make a pre-visit to that place before your shoot, where the location of the shoot, for example, you're shooting a shopkeeper, or you are interviewing someone. So have a look at that location. Observe what all happens there. The typical sights, if you are sitting in a garden, what all you see in the backdrop. The typical sights, people who appear on screen, the place itself, and also be mindful of the transitioning of light. For example, if you have a shoot spread in 4 hours and you start shooting at 4 p.m. and the first 2 hours you have ample sunlight, and it's the same sequence that you have to shoot, but towards evening the light will start dipping and the camera will behave differently in those situations. So be mindful of how the light transitions during that time. And in case of, like, this was more useful for documentaries, like if you want to shoot a live action. In case of fictional films, you imagine each and every detail, what you want to show in the scene, what would be there in the backdrop, in your frame, what all things are visible in your frame. If you have multiple people in the scene, your primary subject is speaking something. So for example, behind me you have 3 more people sitting in a cafeteria and having some, it's an imaginary sequence, but each and every person should be aware of what his role is. Like, they should not be sitting blank after saying their own dialogues and sentences. So imagine each and every detail that you can for a fictional sequence, and observe in case of live action, shooting a live action. You should be aware of that place. So go there, observe things, listen to the sounds. There could be a temple far away, and you can hear the bells ringing. You can hear an announcement of something passing by. Somebody is making an announcement, or things like these. All these observe details, because these add a lot of realism to your scene. When you are done observing or imagining or doing both, make a quick note of all this. Not a quick note, make a note of all this before you forget the idea or the observations. And it helps if you write this note in present tense. For example, a car is moving, a person is approaching, a person of so and so height is approaching me. Sentences like in present tense, this helps. And also make your sentences audio visual in nature, so the person who is reading that note should be able to visualize and hear things. So yes, writing these sentences in present tense, and writing these using audio visual references in your the script, in this note. Mention the things that can be seen and that can be heard, and also use a third person account in this text. Don't use I did this, you did this. If you try and write your sentences, frame your the observation note in this manner, this automatically ensures to some extent that you will have to observe things, you will have to imagine things in details, you have to observe details, and then only you will be able to write a descriptive text about your scene or about the place. So now this was about the content that is to be shot, and how you can be comfortable with the subject, the theme. Now let's talk about how to capture this on camera. The first thing that helps all of us is watch a lot of movies, and we do have certain favorite films of ours, favorite movies. So and we've seen them a couple of times for entertainment purposes. Now consciously play those movies again, and observe like the angles from which something has been shot, what all is there in the frame, and how it impacts you. Observe the camera movements. For example, many times we see a chase sequence in which the camera is also shaking you, and it gives a feel as if you're getting the perspective of the person who is chasing someone or who is running. Observe things like this, make a note of all this, and try and imagine if you were to shoot this, what all you'll have to do to make it look like that particular scene in the movie. So right, when you go for shooting, or when you're preparing for that, be mindful of what all is appearing in your camera's frame, what all you are seeing. Obviously you'll have your a primary subject, what all is there in the background, what all is avoidable, what all you could add to make it more interesting. You could have a background, and also don't hesitate in experimenting newer angles, like from the front. It's looking safe and okay from the front, but maybe if I tilt it to sideways or downwards or upwards, if you change the angle of the shoot, maybe it's looking better in that way. If you change the framing, like if you zoom in and take a closer shot, maybe it is looking, for example, in case you're shooting an intense dialogue, somebody is talking about something very happy or sad that has happened, and you're taking a shot of mid-level shot, like this current video that you're seeing, and try zooming in a bit and closing in onto the face, and maybe you're able to capture more expressions, more deep, intense expressions, or if you could, or if you want to show a gathering or a big landscape, you could zoom out and go farther away to get more things in your frame. So be mindful of, be aware of what all you're seeing in the frame, what all is avoidable, what all you could add. If you could move to a new location, if you could move to a newer background. For example, if you're doing an interview, interviewing someone, no doubt the primary subject and the topic is the key. But if you have an interesting background, if you have a bright wall or some scenery in the background, it makes it more interesting. And also you should, many cameras have special effects inbuilt. You'll have, you can shoot in black and white, you can shoot in sepia, and so they offer you features like shooting in sepia, shooting in black and white, exchanging the colors, or adding a timestamp, adding date and time. So try and avoid using the on-camera effects, because most of these effects are possible in the editing stage. But if you do it on camera, then it is impossible to remove all that. You cannot, if at a later stage you decide that you do not need a black and white effect here, you want it in color, you cannot remove it if you do it on camera. So whereas if you do it in the editing stage, it is very much reversible and undoable. So avoid the on-camera effects. Also, when you are shooting, for example, you're shooting a sequence in which a bike passes by, or just a shot of somebody delivering a dialogue. Make sure that you have 2 or 3 seconds or 5 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds of pre and post roll shoots. That is dead area, the blank area. Before the dialogue starts, you should have a little bit of, start your camera a little bit before the dialogue is starting, or the little bit before the action is actually starting, and cut the camera or switch the shoot off after 2 or 3 seconds of the action completing. Do not keep it very tight, because in editing, if you are adding crossfades and if you want to cut somewhere, it becomes very difficult if you are cutting in between an action or so. So have some margins. If you are doing a fictional scene, if somebody is enacting, make them aware of this, that you are after they have delivered their dialogue, they should stay still, or they should move out of the frame. Tell them that you will be rolling for 3 more seconds, you will be shooting for 3 more seconds, and they should not, like what happens many times is that after delivering the dialogue, the actor turns to the camera and asks, was that okay? So that sometimes it makes it difficult in the editing stages. So better if you keep blank sections of 2 or 3 seconds. Yeah, so now I'm going to tell you about a few camera movements and framings that may help you. The zoom button on your camera, the zoom in and zoom out options help you limit, help you design your frame, like what all should be covered in the shoot, what all is to be excluded. You have to zoom in or zoom out. And then there is one feature, often it is not there in mobile cameras, mobile phone cameras and digital cameras, but in case you are using an SLR, a DSLR camera, you will have the focus functionality with you, so you can focus on a particular object or a person and keep other things out of focus. If you read various photography blogs and help videos, watch the help videos for DSLR shooting and how a camera functions, it will discuss in detail about how to focus and how to set the exposure. All these terms are usually not there in simple mobile phone cameras and digital cameras. They support auto mode only often. And for beginner filmmakers, I would suggest that if you take that first step with your auto mode, and you'll gain experience, and slowly you can explore the manual functions or go into the DSLR shooting domain. And if you are already a photographer, it's a big help for you. You already know the functions of the manual controls of a camera. Then we have the camera movements. Often while shooting, you'll have to move the camera. If you're shooting a car passing by, you'll have to move the camera horizontally. So this movement in which we move the camera horizontally is called a pan, right? This movement. You could do this after mounting on a tripod as well. If you move the camera left and right on a vertical axis, this movement is called a pan. If you move the camera on a horizontal axis, for example, if you're shooting a tall building, we often show the bottom section first, and then we move upwards. This movement is called a tilt. You can do this in a tripod as well, very easily. So this movement is called a tilt. And then there are certain movements that are a mix of both these. If you are shooting a trajectory like this, so all these are complex movements. But the basic movements are pan and tilt. The left, right, and up, down in simple terms. But your camera is mounted in both these. Your camera is mounted on a fixed support. In a pan, it is mounted on a vertical. If I can show you like this, yeah, on a vertical axis, and you pan like this. You capture the panorama. And in the vertical, in the tilt movement, it is mounted on a horizontal support like this, and you tilt your camera like this. It's fixed on a horizontal axis. Yeah, now handheld shooting and using a tripod. What's the difference like, and what are the tips and tricks that you can follow? Handheld, as the name suggests, you hold the camera in your hands. You don't have a tripod, and this also depends upon if you have to quickly shoot some action. You don't have the time to mount the tripod, and also the feel that you want to give to your final sequence, the final scene. For example, chase sequences. If you want to give the perspective of the runner himself, you may have to do a handheld. Yeah, so particularly when doing handheld, as we discussed earlier about the physical comfort, the comfortable posture, a comfortable stance of your body. So this plays a very vital role if you're doing handheld shooting. So be in a steady posture. Often standing in attention or a very stiff body doesn't help much. It induces camera shake, and also you won't be able to take a longish shot for a longer duration. It'll become uncomfortable, and you may end up shaking the camera. Usually legs a little open to your equivalent to your shoulder width when you're standing. This stance helps, and not very stiff, and neither very a bent backbone. You should have a comfortable standing stance, stand at ease, and then shoot. So this is about standing. You should be standing at ease. And then how you hold your camera, how you hold your mobile phone. Suppose if you have a mobile phone, or our typical grip of a mobile phone is like this. We hold it like this. This is a digital camera, but I'm just enacting as if this is I'm just pretending as if it's a mobile phone. So when you shoot like this, you're shooting your sequence or digital camera like this, you're holding it like this. Try and keep your arms closer to your body. The farther they are, the more it will shake. If I hold it very far off from the body, it'll tend to shake, and I'll even if I'm not I'm conscious about not shaking it, it'll strain my arm, and after a while it will become difficult to do longer shoots. So it helps. It really helps if you place your arms closer to your body, and if possible you can hold it like this, or if it's a mobile phone you'll be holding it like this, very close to your body, or a digital camera would be like this, close to your body. This would be an ideal, or like this in front of your face. This could be an ideal a grip and a posture. Wherever possible, if you're shooting outdoor, or if you have some rigid object around you, try and take the support of that. You could lean on a tree trunk, or you could place your elbow over a table. If you're sitting down on the floor, you could place your elbow on one of your knees, or whatever, wherever possible. Try and take a support from for your limbs, for your arms. It helps you take a steadier shot, and you won't get tired very soon. You could, if you have an armless chair, you could sit in the opposite direction with your chest and stomach against the back, and you're sitting as if on a bike, and then you place your arms on the back, the shoulders of the chair, the back of the chair. You can place your arms on that. Now when it comes to camera movements, you should imagine or consider the camera as an extension of your body, and not something separate. Like when you are, suppose, panning, so your pan should not be as if like you see the action, you turn like this, and then you turn the camera like this, then you turn here and you can turn the camera like this. So this is not the ideal way, and this is tiring as well. The ideal and the easiest and the most comfortable way is to just consider the camera as an extension of my arm itself, as a body part itself, and you move the camera along with your as you move your body. Consider this baseline below the navel as your pivot point of your body, of the frame of your body. That is the fixed point, along which you're going to twist and bend on that fixed point. So more often there aren't many shots in which you have to move the camera while shooting, or zoom in while shooting. That is avoidable. Avoid that. Take steady shots, and then for another scene, if you want to go closer, reframe your zoom in to that frame, and then start the roll. Try and not move the camera while shooting. But if you are shooting a moving object, suppose a bike is passing by and you want to pan along with that, so try and when you're panning or tilting, try and move towards the more comfortable posture. For example, if I know that this bike is going to pass from there and pass from here, so what I'll do is, I know that the final position of the exit of that bike from this scene would be here. It starts here and ends here. So try and stand towards your where you will have to approach finally. I'll be facing here, I'll be shooting here, because the bike comes from there and goes there. So stand like in this direction and twist. For shooting the entry of the bike, you twist away from your this original position, and you shoot like this, and you come back to the more comfortable posture. If what happens if I do this, if I'm standing in this direction, or and I twist like this away from a comfortable posture. So in longer shots, or longer duration shots, what happens is this becomes tiring, and towards the end of the shot, usually the camera movement shot ends with a steady, steady moment, a few moments of steadiness. It ends with that. So if I am moving towards a comfortable position, it becomes easy for me to be steady and continue the shooting. If I am moving away, for example, if I stand here, if I am moving away from the comfortable posture, this might induce, this is more tiring, and as I move towards, as I approach the end of the movement, I may start, the camera may get a little shake because of my tiredness. So the gist is that try and move, in case of a moving shot, try and move towards the comfortable posture. And also be aware of, now this becomes a part of the physical fitness and your exhaustion. Be aware of your breathing patterns while you are shooting. If you are breathing very heavily, profusely, or if you are tired, you may end up shaking the camera, and also the breathing sound may get captured, and you will have handling noise coming into the shoot. So but yes, if you're fit and comfortable, this won't create a bigger hindrance. Now we come to the tripod. A tripod is a very useful apparatus. Like these are generic tripods on which you can mount handy cams, even DSLRs or digital cameras, all on the same tripod, because they come with base plates. And most of the cameras, perhaps it's an industry standard, that all of the cameras come with a provision. For example, this one has a place to insert a screw here, or so that the base plate of the tripod fits here, and then this gets mounted on the tripod. Similarly, other cameras also have places for screws and more holders, pin holders, so that they can be used along with the tripod. So a tripod has 3 legs, that's why it's called a tripod, and the legs can be extended further to get more height. Then the central rod also often has a provision to increase or decrease the height further. There is a provision of panning and tilting, and in some tripods you can even tilt the camera sideways. So depending upon how complicated your tripod is, you can do these movements. Then tripods also come with the higher end tripods come with hydraulic heads. They have oil-based heads where you have mounted the camera and you are panning and zooming. So these movements become more fluid and less jerky. As compared to handheld, tripods have a lesser maneuverability. You cannot move very quickly with a camera mounted on a tripod, and you cannot take moving shots very easily. But it adds stability and steadiness to a shot. But so in cases when you're sure that you have to take a steady shot, you are interviewing someone on a desk, sitting on a desk, or if you know that all you have to do is zoom in, zoom out, and pan and tilt, and you don't have to move very often. So mounting the camera on a tripod makes it very easy, and also adds a very stable look and feel to your scene. Then we have devices, apparatus, some tools like a monopod, which gives you a little bit of maneuverability of the handheld and some stability of a tripod. So go on the net and explore what a tripod and a monopod is. So you'll get to know how to use them and how they add value to your shoot. A few more things that can help you frame better is, one of them is being mindful of the headspace. So in this video, if you see, there is some gap between the top of the video and my head. So this makes it, this gives some space to the subject when you have some headspace. It gives some space to the subject, and the scene doesn't look very cluttered. So and also, if later on if you want to remove that, you can obviously crop it in the editing stage. But if you haven't left some headspace in your frame, it won't be possible to add it on a later stage. You can obviously remove it if there is extra headspace. So be mindful of the headspace. Then there is something called a rule of thirds. So if you see here, the screen is divided into a grid, some very fine lines. So vertically it is divided into 3 portions, and horizontally also it is divided into 3 portions. So the rule of thirds says that often it looks good and safer if you have your primary subjects along the center lines. For example, now in this frame I'm not on the center, like right now I'm on the center of the frame, but it is by experience and by yes, by experience and by viewing various kind of framing, watching them, it was found that if you have your subject either on one of the center lines of the rule of, as per the rule of thirds, like this is a little offset from the center, this gives a safer shot, or if I'm here and facing that way, on little offset this side on the from the center line, this gives a more safer and a comfortable frame. Go on the internet and study more about the rule of thirds and how to use and how to creatively go against this rule. You'll find many instances and examples on the internet, so do explore this rule of thirds. Often when you are doing an interview, you are it helps if you apply this. If you take a medium shot, for example, this current shot is not very close to my face and it is not very far off, showing my complete body. It is very. This one is a medium kind of shot. You can see my shoulders, chest, and the face, and then there is head space. So these framings often help in interviews, and also you could have the subject placed in as per the rule of thirds, and there could be a person asking the question. For example, in this video, you have this section as blank. Like I'm on this, I have an offset. I'm the primary subject here, so I have an offset on this side of the center line. So the interviewer could stand on this side of the camera, so that I face him in this direction. If the interviewer is on this side and I'm facing here, this leaves a lot of blank space, which is dead space and not very useful. So try and have the interviewer or the person who is asking the question to stand on this side, so that I face towards the blank space of this frame. And also particularly to the interviews, it helps if the subject is talking to the interviewer and not looking directly into the camera, because it looks more natural. And so we discussed framing, some safer shots for the interviews, rule of thirds, and another thing that appears in your frame apart from your subjects is the background. So be mindful of have good looking and non-distracting backgrounds, have pleasant and interesting backgrounds. So don't hesitate in experimenting with moving to a new location or to a newer room. And we discussed that a lot of time you'll be shooting on the auto mode. If you want to learn more about things like exposure, focus, white balance, try and learn the functioning of a DSLR camera, or the manual functions on your own camera. If you have a digital camera which has manual functions, explore them. Go to the internet and read blogs and read user manuals, that might help. Another thing, now we discussed the framing and what all is being shot. Another major thing that is seen in our shot that we are seeing is the light. And due to light, it's due to light that we are seeing the various subjects, the objects. So be mindful of the nature of light of that space, the angle from which the light is falling onto the subjects, and try different angles, try and move the subject. If you cannot move the light, try and move the subject to a newer angle, shoot from a newer angle and see what kind of, for example, it's if you have a lot of light coming from the front, the visibility of the face would be and the brightness would be good, but you won't get shadows. If you're having angled lights, you'll get shadows on the depressed areas and the elevated. For example, the nose casts a shadow, the eyes, here you get shadows, and this makes it a little more real and the skin tones warmer. So depending upon what you want in your scene, also be mindful of the light the type of light, the color of light, and the angle, the intensity of light, how bright it is, and from where it is coming, which angle. And also in case of backlit objects, like if the light is coming from behind me, you'll get silhouettes, or you may not get the capture the features of a face properly, the intricate parts properly. It'll fall in the dark area because the light is coming from behind. And in many cases this is desirable. You want a dark an outline only to be seen, just a silhouette. So depending upon your usage, be mindful of the backlight and the other factors that we discussed. And another primary, a very major thing that often goes wrong with beginners, especially working with digicams and mobile phones, is the sound. When it comes to things that we are seeing, we get to, nowadays we do have the cameras and phones, they do have big LCD screens, and we are seeing what is happening, right? We get a very good idea of what we are capturing and what the frame looks like, and we just need to observe what's there on the screen and see it properly and decide the frame. But what happens in case of sound is that we have a very intelligent audio system inside us, our brain, and this whole system, the hearing system, what it does is it has the ability to automatically focus on things which are more important to us, or things which make more sense. And in this right now as well, what our brain does is it focuses when we are listening to something and you have traffic noise around and still your friend is talking to you, we tend to listen to it very easily. We're able to make out what he or she is saying, and despite the traffic and all. But the machines, the cameras, the sound recorders, they don't have this intelligent system within them. So what happens is all this sound is present at this moment, and they capture each and every, depending upon their own the machine's sensitivity, it captures everything that is audible, and it even captures interferences from mobile phones and other electromagnetic interferences. So you should be mindful of, be aware of what all the sound sources are in this room, and go to your shooting location and listen properly. Close your eyes and just try and listen what all sound sources are present here. Focus on that, and try and do away with the non-desirable sound sources. For example, if you could switch the fan off, and if it is very noisy, you could close the windows. Or there have been tips and tricks like if you want sunlight also to come in, and if you want the noise also to stay out, people have used plastic sheets. Open the windows and use very thick plastic sheets on your windows. For example, if you watch the making of that movie called Taare Zameen Par, they have done this trick in the classroom scenes, where the windows are open so that the sunlight can come in, but it has plastic sheets invisible, which are invisible to us, but it stops the noise outside, the traffic noise outside itself. So you could do tips and tricks like this. Try and move to a quieter location. Though the sound recordings can be enhanced in the editing stage, but not to that extent. The best thing is to record a clean signal, record the cleanest possible sound that you can. Do away with the sources of noises. Identify the sources of noise first, and then try and do away with them. If possible, if your some cameras have a headphone out, so if possible, use that while shooting. You monitor your sounds using a headphone. If your camera has the ports to plug a headphone in, it helps you focus more on what is being captured than what your ears are hearing. If you have the headphones around you, you'll be monitoring exactly what is being what is coming into the camera. Apart from the ambient sound sources and noises, another noise inducing thing is the handling noise and the camera's own motors, etc. So if you zoom in, zoom out while you're shooting, you may end up listening to the sound of the motor. And also if you fiddle a lot with your camera, or if you have bangles and other things that are striking against the camera body, it gets captured, and it's, to us it may not sound very loud, but it gets recorded as a very loud signal and it is distracting. Another workaround for this is a little advanced step, that is you could separate the camera and the sound recording functionalities, like use a separate sound recorder for recording sound and place it closer to the, for example, if I'm shooting something from this distance and you're using the internal camera mics, your sound levels may dip if you go far, but you still want a shot from far away and not from very near to the subject. So in these cases you could either professionally people use boom rods and long mics and or a lavalier or collar mic. You could also for beginner projects use separate. Nowadays your phones come loaded with sound recorders, your MP3 players have sound recorders, or there are small devices called voice recorders. So record the sound separately. You're shooting on the camera and place a sound recorder in the pocket of the subject, or somewhere nearer to the subject, so that you get the sound signal very crisp and clear. At the editing stage you can obviously mix the visuals and the sound together, so there are functionalities and features for you to do that in the editing stage. But again, in the sound recorder also you have to be mindful of what all is getting captured and the handling noise. If you put it in the pocket, your sound may get muffled, or the sound of the cloth rubbing against, or anything kept in the pocket rubbing against the sound recorder. So be mindful of that and keep monitoring. Do a sample shoot, do a sample recording and hear it, and then try and fix what's going wrong. And again, for people who are using DSLRs or who have any sort of ability to control all these camera features and functions manually, if you have access to manual controls, it enhances. If you have the appropriate settings with you, the appropriate focus, the appropriate exposure, there's something called the depth of field. So if you have all this set properly, you can end up getting very crisp results. In fact, DSLRs are being used in professional movies as well nowadays. So you can, if you study that, maybe we'll cover that in some other video, or there already are many videos online and blogs where people have shared the DSLR tricks. So try and go through those blogs and those videos, and I'm sure it will help you big time. This video was again more focused on your taking your first step into the domain, the zone of filmmaking, using phones and simple gadgets, and basics of what can go wrong with a beginner and how to deal with that, what are the remedies. So I hope it helped you. We'll soon try and share something about the editing projects. Till then, good luck.